Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hey, everybody. Yeah. Don't you feel? I can't remember that song. I think it's a song by America. that band. What's happening, peeps? How art thou? Wonderful. Where are you? Where you guys listen from in this wide, wonderful world of ours? So I'll start by commenting on the photo I used on social media for this podcast. You know, I was just kind of thinking, what should I talk about? And I decided I would talk about teaching people how to treat us for the most part. That was the thought that I had. And as I was but typing in the topic, I was like, okay, you know, sometimes I'll stop and think and go, you know, what would capture people's attention? You know what I mean? So instead of teaching people how to treat us, the topic I put was tired of people treating you poorly. A lot of times people can resonate with an experience like that, especially something that's frustrating them, right? And they'll be like, oh yes, I'm tired of people treating me poorly. So it kind of captures their interest. So I decided to do that. And I created the graphic, you know, real quick. And then I had gotten up off the couch and I walked over, and my dog, Faith, had taken my seat. She moved over to where I was sitting. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing in my seat? So I started fooling around, and I sat on her head, not like, you know, I was supporting myself with my legs, not actually, but like I kind of sat on her head, and she pushed her head through my legs. And I thought it was hilarious. So I took a couple pictures, and then I was looking at the pictures, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is perfect. Like this all unfolded in like, I don't know, 5 minutes. And so I looked at the picture, and I was like, oh my God, tired of people treating you poorly. And then here I am sitting on Faith's head with her looking up at me like, what the hell are you doing? You know, so that's the graphic I used. So yeah. So if you guys haven't checked it out, check out my Facebook page or my my Instagram and check out the photo that I used. I got a kick out of it. I hope you guys like it. So I'm hoping for some interaction with you guys today, you know, because this is such a topic that we can use real specific real life examples, so you can kind of get some free life coaching if you know what I'm saying. So feel free, you know, go in the comments and reach out. And I think the settings are all set where I can see the comments from everybody now in all the locations. If not, I might be able to check the ones on Facebook. So, but actually, I'm going to check those. I'm going to check the settings now on Facebook. Who can comment on your post? Public, yeah. So it should be all set where I can see the comments from everybody. So here we go. Without further ado, um, if somebody's behaving in a way that you don't like, one of the best ways to stop them from behaving that way is just simply making sure that whatever they're trying to accomplish, they don't accomplish. Okay, so it's that's kind of vague, but it's really what's interesting is I phrased it that way, like probably to my to myself, but I phrased it that way at some point, and then as normal situations arise in life, those words would come into my head, and I saw that those words could apply to so many different situations, and I love that. To me, that that those are good words for a rule. Then so just make sure whatever they're trying to accomplish doesn't get accomplished. So let's see. I tried to come up with some examples, but like I said, please comment so I can use some real life stuff too. Not that these aren't real life, but so I mean, one of the most common foundational easy ways to explain this is when somebody's arguing. Somebody constantly argues with you. And this can happen in friendships, this can happen in romantic relationships, this can happen with parents or family, siblings. It can happen with anybody, and it's frustrating, because these when people are arguing, nothing good comes out of it. It's like, as a general rule, most people can't argue calmly and then walk away feeling good. It's very negative energy. It's very frustrated energy. And a lot of times it's actually a power struggle. So one side ends up caving. It's not that one side wins the argument. It's one side gets sick of arguing or feels hopeless, like they can't win, or blah, 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 many other things. And they just give up. And then the other one thinks that they won. So it's just not productive, and it's not healthy. And if we're in, relationship with somebody, it's unless that is stopped, the relationship is going to get continually more unhealthy. It's going to get less healthy and less healthy. The more arguing is a part of it. So what you do is you just choose not to argue. So that's kind of it. That's primary. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to get in a fight. I'm not going to lose my peace. I'm not going to get yelled at. I'm not going to be talked down to. I'm not, whatever aspect of the argument you don't want to experience, then you just have to make a commitment to not experience that, because there are other ways of communicating, healthier ways, more productive ways. So, but most often when things are going in the wrong direction, to get them going in the right direction is too big of a leap, especially if we have years or sometimes months, but usually years of a particular behavior over and over and over again. So this is conditioned behavior. And just because you want it to stop doesn't mean that the other person wants it to stop. Just because you've come to the enlightened idea that arguing doesn't solve anything doesn't mean that they're on the same page. And it sure as heck doesn't mean that they're on the same page in that particular moment. So what I do, if I know that I'm going to implement something like this, I'll tell with somebody in particular, I'll tell the other person just to give them a heads up that I'm going to be doing this. And it's usually effective, because then they have a warning. Then when all of a sudden I start behaving differently than what they're used to, they're like, oh, okay, I knew this was coming. And sometimes they'll adjust to it quicker. Sometimes they won't. It's okay. That's not important. What's important is making the rule and sticking to it. I'm not arguing. As soon as the voices get raised, as soon as, the tempers start going up, whatever, as soon as the behavior is something that you don't want to experience, I'm not doing this. I'm not arguing. We'll have to talk about it later, but I'm not arguing about it. And you can try that. And, if you're lucky enough to have that work, cool. But if not, walk away. You know what? I said I'm not arguing, and physically walk away. If you're in your house, you can go into a different room. If they follow you into the different room, you can be like, okay, really? You're going to chase me room to room arguing? No, respect my wishes. I'm choosing not to argue. If that doesn't work, then get in your car and leave. And some people who aren't used to setting boundaries will be like, oh my God, that's such a, oh, I don't want to do that. That'll cause more controversy, or that'll, guys, if you want to change your life, you have to take action. And it's really not that big of a deal. Getting in your car and going for a drive for 15 minutes or a half an hour, or go get a coffee, go, whatever. Doesn't matter. You can come right back. It's just breaking the cycle. Just saying, I'm not doing this, and I will do whatever it takes to not do this. That's the mentality. It's very simple. I'm not arguing. It's not whether somebody's right or somebody's wrong, or I'm not behaving this way. I'm not arguing. I'm not. It's not going to happen. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get myself out of the situation so it doesn't happen. So if you're not going to listen to my words, then you'll have to listen to my actions, because I'm not going to be here to listen to you continue arguing. And we need to just not see, this is why it works. Everything is dynamics. Why does this dynamic work? Because when people are arguing, they get something that they want. They sometimes, it can be different things. Sometimes it's a release of emotion. They want to release their emotion all over you. So if you allow them to do that, they get what they want. So then, you go, geez, I don't know why they won't stop arguing. It's because they're getting what they want. That's why. People do what works on some level, especially when they're interacting with other people. The way they figure out a behavior pattern is if they behave in a certain way and they get what they want, then they'll continue behaving in that way. That's just how human beings work. So if you understand that, then you have to make sure they don't get what they want. So it could be an emotional release. It could be for you to cave to them. It could be for them to feel like they proved their point. It doesn't matter what it is. This is the beauty of understanding these dynamics, is you don't have to spend your time figuring out what they're trying to get. It doesn't matter what they're trying to get. If you don't argue, they're not going to get it. That's all that matters. That's the dynamic. And eventually they'll stop. It's very frustrating. I can argue, man. I can argue. I have that ability. I've argued plenty in the past. And, I'm sure I get into an argument here or there more recently, right? It happens. But my point is that, like, if somebody doesn't get what they want, if they don't get that release, then eventually they'll stop. And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to get what you want in the way that you normally get what you want and not being able to. So this is what frustrates people, is that they're used to behaving in a certain way and getting what they want, and now all of a sudden you're just shutting it down. And it's like, what? it really captures their attention because you're not feeding it energy. You're just starving it. Which everything is energy. So, there we go right back to that rule, starve what you don't want and feed what you do want. So like if you want peace, feed peace. If you don't want arguing, you have to starve the arguing, which means you don't put any energy towards it. You don't do it. You don't participate in it. And you sure as heck don't sit there and allow them to continue doing it, because then they'll just feed it themselves. So it's starving it of energy. It's just, so when they're trying to get what they want, whatever it is. And some people, Susan says, some people just love drama and they don't even realize it. Yeah, exactly. It's unconscious behavior, so they're not, they have, that actually is an important point, because like a lot of the stuff I talk about, and maybe I got to write this down as a topic, explaining unconscious behavior, because I'm going to write that down, because as a podcast topic, unconscious behavior, because this is something, it's an important piece. They don't know what they're doing. It's a habitual pattern of behavior. Okay, so they're not aware that they're arguing so that they can overtake you or make you cave or feel an emotional release. They don't know that's why they're doing it. Just like you probably didn't know why you were putting up with it. You were putting up with it because you're like, oh, there's no other option or something, and this is just the way it is. No, that's not true. There are other options. So yes, people don't realize it. We function unconsciously. Like our unconscious belief systems and habitual patterns that we've developed over our lifetime are so below the surface, and so few people function from there. And they sure as heck don't function from there when they're behaving poorly. Like when they're not aware. It's all, they're functioning from below, which is the why of it, right? But they're up here. They never look down and go, oh, why do I behave like this? Well, I behave like this because in my household when I was growing up, this was the only way I could get, get anything that I wanted. There was other kids, siblings, and my parents wouldn't listen. And if I pushed and pushed and pushed and was loud enough, then I would get what I wanted. So I learned to push to get what I wanted, and eventually people would cave. So it worked. So now I'm doing that now. People don't know that. Basically all of our behaviors are traced back to stuff like that. Most of it between the ages of 4 and 7, or some people say 0 to 8 or whatever. And sometimes later in life too, by intense experiences. So these things are locked into place so long ago, and they are unconscious. So they override the conscious. I mean, how many people do you know that say, oh, I'm not going to argue, or I'm not going to do that? Yeah, when they're conscious and they're thinking clearly, and they're not caught up in the emotion of the situation, then as soon as the situation comes in, they revert right back to the way they always have interacted in those situations. Like I noticed it with when my son was playing soccer. And, the older he got, probably the worse it got, because like the age, like I stopped competing really intensely, or at least on a regular basis, in sports when I was a teenager. That was basically, when I was, I don't know, 17 or 18, that's when most of my sports stopped. So, and of course I did it later on, but I also wasn't maturing because I was drinking all the time. But like, so I was so emotional back then that sports brought out the emotion in me, and I had difficulty controlling myself in a sporting situation. And when my son started playing soccer, especially as he got older and it got more intense, I had difficulty controlling myself sometimes, because it like, Last time I was in a highly competitive situation in games that sports that I cared about, because I cared about it because my son was involved and sometimes I was coaching, so when I last was in that scenario, I was incapable of handling my emotions. So then now all of a sudden I'm in that situation again, I don't know what, 30 years later or something, or less, but I was in that situation again and it brought back all my old behaviors. I mean, fortunately I've grown a lot, so I controlled them most of the time, but a few times I get triggered, and I was like, wow, this was how, and when I tuned into it, I realized this was how the last time I was participating in competitive sports, I was this age and that's how I behaved. So here I am all these years later, and on an unconscious level, I was still behaving like that. So and it's not to excuse behavior. I'm not explaining this to excuse behavior. What I'm doing is I'm explaining it because so we can have some understanding. Understanding and compassion does not mean that we don't set boundaries and we don't hold other people accountable. I don't know why people always think that. I explain I explain stuff and I go, this is what's happening. And everybody goes, oh, well, then we're supposed to let everybody treat us like crap forever. That's unfair. I don't want to do it. No, I didn't say that. And usually I've specifically said, no, you do hold people accountable. This is not an excuse. And sometimes I'll say it multiple times and people will leap over whatever I said and go there anyway. So no, it's not an excuse. We still have to teach people how to treat us, and that's what we're talking about. It's just understanding. So we blame and judge people less. Running around blaming people and judging people and feeling like a victim of other people keeps us stuck. That's not what we're looking for here. I'm looking to empower you. Okay. Empower you so you're in control of your situation, so you can handle life better. So you can stand up to people treating you better. So you don't feel like a victim. That's what all this is about. It's empowerment. We have control over things that we don't think we have control over. You can teach people how to treat you. So I want to teach that. I don't want to have people think that they're a victim of other people because they're behaving poorly. So just understand why they're doing it. They're not out to attack you consciously. Most people, I mean, of course there are extreme examples, and I think that's why people think it's true. Well, people think it's true because they don't dissect it. They don't think too much on it, and they don't think too clearly on it. They just look at it real quick when they're pissed off at this person, and they go, they must be a jerk and they're trying to hurt me, because that's what their actions are doing. It's like, yeah, everybody does that. Most people aren't consciously trying to hurt other people. And if they are, it's usually in a moment where they're consumed by the pain body and they're not really aware of what they're doing. Their unconscious is acting, And again, it's not that we put up with it and allow it. It's just so we understand it and we don't blame other people and judge other people so much. Just, because that's handing our power away. They're in control of how I feel. No, they're not. They're out to attack me. No, most often they're not. It's not that big of a deal. People are just acting unconsciously because we live in an unconscious world. This is why there's so many problems, So it's just about understanding. So we don't demonize everybody. We're always demonizing people. It's just understand, man, people are functioning from unconscious places. So we just have to step up and teach people how to treat us. That's all. Because they're not slowing down to try to figure out how to treat us. And everybody thinks that, well, I do. I pay attention to how I treat people. Yeah, some people do more than other people. This is a fact. But there are times when all of us have treated somebody else poorly and we rationalize our behavior because it's ours. So we go, well, you don't understand. This has been 5 years coming, and they did a bunch of things to me first. It's like, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking you were just acting like a jerk. You know? So from their perspective, you're doing the same thing that they were doing. It's so we rationalize when we do it, but then when other people do it, we feel like a victim. We got to break this cycle. So we just empower ourselves and teach people how to treat us. And the biggest key is not letting them get what they want. And it doesn't matter if they know what they want. It's just don't let them do that. Like I did this with bosses. I've done this with just about everybody. Because I'm not good. Like things don't go well if I get into an argument because I'm an arguer. So like I can argue. If you want to go there, I can go there and it can get ugly if I allow myself. So like I have to make sure I don't go there. So if somebody's arguing with me, I have to shut it down or else it's not going to go well. You know, because God forbid I lean in and then there's two of us acting like morons instead of one. So I need to try to force myself to get out of these situations. So I have, because I know nothing good comes out of it. So I've done it to bosses. And, you know, like most people are scared to do it to bosses because they think like they have to allow their boss to yell at them viciously because they're their boss. Not true. And I found a lot of peace in my work life before I started my own business with bosses once I understood the dynamics, because when I was younger, I always fought against the dynamic. I have a major problem with authority. So I couldn't accept authority. So I always fought against it and I always had major problems. But then after I woke up, I realized like, hey, if I want to make the decisions, then like the owner of the company or the manager of my department, then I need to take their job. Like I have to be in their position because that's how the structure of business works. They make decisions and then tell you what to do. That's just what it is. So you don't resist it. You just accept it. And that brought me a lot of peace, but that does not mean I allowed people to mistreat me. That I don't give a crap. That ain't going to happen. So like if people like bosses started yelling or arguing, I'd be like, whoa, I can't. You have to stop arguing. You have to stop yelling at me. And you know, usually that would infuriate them more because they're already angry. That's why they're yelling. And and then I'm in here going, wait a minute, you can't yell at me. And they're the boss, right? So very rarely did that work at first. But then I stood my ground because if they continued yelling at me, it was going to get ugly because I cannot keep my mouth shut for too long. So I either get out of the situation and make sure they don't get what they want, or I engage, and then I'll probably end up fired, you know? So I learned to disengage, and it worked so well because I was just like, no, it's just, no, I can't be yelled at. And I'd start walking towards the door, and I'm like, I can't, you have to stop yelling. And I'd start, and then sometimes they'd catch themselves. Sometimes they wouldn't. They'd be too far gone. So I would just open the door and walk out. And a lot of times I would walk right out of the building because now I was already irritated. So I would walk right out of the building and walk down the street. I've done it multiple times. Oh, you can't leave grounds or something like, you know, so think about it. I mean, realistically, what are they going to do? Go to HR and, you know, when they're, and be like, yes, I was screaming at this person uncontrollably and they wouldn't allow it. So we have to fire them. Like they'd get sued trying to fire you for that, you know? So I never got in trouble. I did it several times with several different jobs. I never got in trouble, not once. Because once they cool down, they realize that their behavior is inappropriate. I mean, adults screaming at other adults. That's not okay, guys. Like I know, I kind of find it weird that people don't know this yet. Like, and I guess it's because of, how I grew up. Like, like where I grew up, it was pretty violent, and my life was really violent. So like fights were breaking out all over the place. So like once I became an adult, it was the way I understood reality was like if a grown man starts something with another grown man, they have to be ready that they might get punched in the mouth, because that's just how I grew up. It was like you had to be careful who you were talking to and in what way, because a fist could come flying at you at any given moment if you were with the wrong person saying the wrong things. So I kind of got used to that, and it was just like, then I'm in so I guess it's more clear because of that to me. To me, that kind of locked into my brain, into my unconscious. And I was like, and I grew up, so I learned that you don't run around punching people, right? But like the you must respect me because I'm an adult and you're an adult stayed with me. Like, when I was a kid, I got into so many arguments and issues with authority because of my problem with authority, right? I was always pushing back. And as a kid, you don't have much power. You don't have really a leg to stand on in a lot of situations. So once I became an adult, it was like game on, man. Like, if an adult crossed me, I was like, hey, I'm an adult now. So you're an adult, I'm an adult. Be careful, because we can handle this like adults. And to me, that meant a punch in the mouth. No, again, I understood that hitting people, wasn't acceptable in a workplace. So I didn't run around doing that. I don't think I ever hit anybody in a workplace. My point is, it was the same mentality. So this is a very clear rule. You don't yell at me. You just don't. You never have. Now, before I would have argued. Now I don't. Now I stop arguing. It's, because you live, you learn, you grow. I opened and I found out that I realized that my arguing wasn't working. It wasn't helping matters. Even if I won or thought I won, it wasn't helping anything. So don't do that. So what I learned was starving was much more beneficial. Getting myself out of the situation worked way better. So that's what I would do. And like I said, I walked out with bosses. I've walked out of rooms with romantic partners. I've walked out of rooms with family, I think. I don't really argue with my family. There's been a couple minor ones, but my point is, it's just get yourself out of a situation, and it's healthy for you because now you're not exposed to it. But the reason that it changes the other person's behavior is because they don't get what they want. And if you are consistent with it, this is the thing, you got to be consistent with your consequences. So, like you can kind of get it in your head. Like if it's systematic, a lot of times it'll click in their brains quicker. Like the more structured it is, like if you use the same words, if you do like 2 strikes and you're out, like comment, action, I told you we can't argue. If you continue arguing, I'm going to have to leave. Oh, you're still arguing. I'm going to have to leave now. They continue arguing and then you walk out. So that's, warning, action. And if you use the same words and you do it in that same pattern, it happens even quicker. And it's just because whatever their unconscious reward is, venting out the emotion or winning the argument or, all those things that I talked about earlier, whatever they're unconsciously trying to achieve, they can't achieve it now. And it's very frustrating. And the point isn't to frustrate them. The point is to change their behavior. That's how their behavior changes, because they're frustrated. So they start looking for a different way to behave so they can achieve what they want to achieve. and then they change their behavior. See, it's a very simple dynamic. Don't let them get what they want. And it's not important that you know what they want. In some situations it's helpful, of course, but like a lot of situations, you don't have to know what somebody's trying to achieve by their poor behavior. All you got to do is just disconnect from it. And then it ends, and they're left like in no man's land. Like, oh no, and then they're frustrated, and it's like, and then it's like, I've done it with people that really wanted to argue, and I've literally like done this with like leaving rooms. Okay, so it kind of looked like this, and this is kind of a good example because you can see how the consistency changes behavior. So I've done it on the phone too. Like, it's like, hey, I can't get a word in edgewise. I'm not going to sit here and listen to you yell. And they're talking right over me. They can't even, I'm pretty sure they can't even hear me. They might catch a word here or there, but they probably can't even hear what I'm saying. And but my boundary is not contingent on their agreement. My boundary is my boundary. So I just follow through. Listen, if you keep yelling, I'm going to have to hang up. I'm going to hang up. I'm going to count to 3, and then I'm going to hang up. 1, 2, 3. Click. Then the phone rings. Hello? You hung up on me. Yeah, I told you I was going to hang up on you because you're just yelling at me, and I'm not going to get yelled at. Well, you can't just hang up on me. No, don't start yelling at me again because I'm just going to hang up again. If you keep yelling in 3 seconds, I'm going to hang up. 1, 2, 3, click. The phone ring back. I can't believe you. Stop hanging up on me. Stop yelling at me. If you keep yelling at me, I'm going to keep hanging up. Click. Bring. Hello? Stop hanging. I'm not going to sit here, have you yelling at me. Click. Bring. Hello. I've done that like 10 times before. And eventually, after a while, they either stop calling, which is a win, because I didn't get yelled at, or most often what happens, right, is like when they finally settle themselves down and get it, that you're not going to let them finish. They're not going to get whatever it is that they want. The phone will ring and you'll pick up, you go, hello. And you just say hello calmly every time at first, just to see if they're in the right space yet. Hello. And they go, okay, I'll just talk. It's like, okay, great. So what did you want to talk about? And then you just stay calm, and it works. I've done it leaving rooms. I've walked out of the same room like 3 times. See, when it's physical action as opposed to hanging up, a lot of times it will work even quicker because there's more energy in that space. You're in the same space. So you physically walk out of the room, and it's like, go get a drink, come back in. Do you want to talk now? I can't believe you walked out. Well, never mind. Walk out of the room. Go look out the window for a while. Walk back in the room. So can we talk calmly? No, not yet. Okay. You walk out of the room. Finally, you come back in. And like, a lot of times I'll just come back in the room and I won't even ask them if they're ready to talk. I'll just kind of, if they don't attack me as soon as I walk in the room, then I'll just sit down. Okay. And just wait, just relax. See if they want to start talking. Maybe they're just not in the space that they can talk today. It's okay. But do you see how simple it is? Don't let them get what they want. Don't let them get that emotional release. Don't let them feed the pain body. Don't let them, so if they can't get what they want, eventually they'll change their behavior. It's that simple. Let's see. And if you guys have any situations, specific situations that you want me to comment on, let me know. Let's see. I'm just checking out a couple notes. Yeah, I mean, it's so many situations. I'm going to try to give you some other situations. And I don't know that these are the best examples, but but they're all I got right now. I just want to try to get you guys to understand that this plays out in all kinds of different situations. Like if a company is blowing up my phone with text messages, like this just happened last week, I'll message them and I'll say, if you send me one more unsolicited text message, I promise you I will never do business with you. It's not going to happen because this is offensive at this point. You're just harassing me. And if you continue to harass me, then I will not do business with you. And that's kind of the point of your business. So, I've done that with calls and stuff. So don't let that, like, some people be like, oh, I hate this company. They call me all the time. It's like, oh, what is it? Insurance company. They call me all the time, and they're just such a pain in the butt. So like last week, I took out an insurance policy with them, and I'm like, what? You? So somebody came into your world and did a bunch of stuff that you don't like, and what you did is you rewarded them for it. You gave them what they wanted. They were hoping to get your business, and you gave them the business. So what you did is you taught them that harassment is a good thing. And then you're wondering why they're still harassing you? It's because you showed them that if somebody harasses you, they get what they want. This is why I do it with buying cars. Go to a car dealership. People like I set the rules when I go buy a car. And I'm not afraid to walk out. Like, I'll tell, usually at this point, if I'm going to buy a new car, the last couple times in the States, like I would go in and I would look up the two, like I would usually kind of know what car I wanted. So let's say I was going to buy a Toyota. We'll just say I was going to buy a Toyota because I haven't. I don't think I've owned a Toyota. So that's a safe bet. But so I would look up the Toyota dealership in my town, and then I would look up the next closest Toyota dealership. And I would go to the one in my town, and I would say, listen, I'm going to buy a Toyota. This is the vehicle I want. I want, this model. And I basically know what I want. So I'm like, this is what I want. Maybe talk to them a little bit to find out some specifics or something, maybe take a test drive if I want. But basically, this is what I'm doing. And I say, as soon as we're like, I'm going to have you go get your best deal from your manager. And I'm only taking one deal. Like whatever your best number is, I want you to get it. I'm not sitting here going back and forth for 8 hours drinking coffee while you play the game that, oh, I fought with my manager for you, and then this is what we got. No, you're going to have one opportunity to give me your best price. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to that Toyota dealership. That one, in the next town over, your competitor, I'm going over there. And then I'm going to ask them for their best price. And I'm going to tell them the same thing. They only have one shot at this. And whoever gives me the best price, I'm going to buy that car today. So you're not going to make a lot of money off this. So it's, some you make a lot of money off of, some you don't. This one can go towards your bonus. You'll just sell a car. It'll be fast. It won't take a lot of your time as long as you don't try giving me the runaround. And I'll buy the car today. And it'll be very simple. Then you can go start making money off other people. But that's what I'm going to do. So you got one shot. Then I'll go to the other person, and sometimes they go, yeah, tell me what their number was. I'm like, I'm not telling you what their number is. You give me your best number. Whoever gives me the best number, I'm buying the car from them today. And that's what I do. So, I stay in control so I don't play their game. But you got to be, willing to follow through and walk out. Let's see what Dave say. I guess someone like that and won't give him the time of day. Right. That's the best thing that we can do. If somebody's behaving in a way that we don't like, just don't feed it. Everything is energy. Just don't give them the time of day. Don't pay attention to them. Don't interact with them. Don't, if it's the best way, especially as adults. And kids in school, it's a little tougher. But when we get to be adults, yeah, there's still jerks and stuff. But like there's a different level of what's acceptable and what's not between adults in most situations. I think it's a little bit easier as an adult. It was easier than growing up for me anyway. But yeah, we just don't feed it. That's our interaction is energy, and that feeds it. So it keeps it alive. It's very simple dynamic. If people constantly show up late, then cancel the plans. If somebody always shows up late, somebody did that to me many years ago. This was like 15, 20 years. Well, maybe not 20, but 15 years ago, maybe more. Like there was somebody and we're hanging out and it was kind of casual and we just hung out and we got along really well and it was fun. So we kept hanging out, but then we hung out more and I started making plans with this person to hang out, and they showed up like 2 hours late to something that I really wanted to do. And it messed up the plans. And I was like, what the? So we didn't go. I was like, it's too late now. I mean, we might have been able to go, but I was so frustrated. I wasn't going to feed that behavior. So I canceled it. It's like, we're not going. And I mean, sometimes if I really want to go somewhere, I'll go because it's what I want. I'm not going to punish myself, but I knew I could go to this place some other time. So I was like, well, whatever. So they did that. And afterwards, I talked to them and I said, listen, I cannot stand that. Like when I have specific plans that have time set aside, like it's disrespectful to me to disrespect my time and to show up 2 hours late. That's ridiculous. Like I could have slept in. I could have, no, if you say you're going to be there somewhere, be there, at least with me. I don't care what you do with everybody else. But if you do this again, I'm not making any more plans with you. I'm not doing it because it goes up my ass sideways. And if you say you're going to be there, be there. Oh, yeah, I get it. And then, so we made plans like a few weeks later, and doesn't he do it again? And I mean, I think after he was like 10 minutes late, I hopped in my car and I left my house. He was on his way over to my house and I left my house because I didn't want to get into a conversation with him, and I canceled the plans and I was like, we're done. He's like, no, man, I was just messing with you. I showed up 15 minutes late. What's 15 minutes? It's not. No, I told you that I do not do this. I don't do this. I don't play the game. I told you that I wasn't going to make plans with you again if you did this. And you did it again after I specifically told you that this is not going to happen if we are going to hang out. It's not going to happen. And you did it anyway. So, you obviously don't respect me or respect what I'm saying, and I can't make plans with somebody like that. If you agree to it, then do it. I can't respect you. You lie. You say you're going to do one thing and then you don't do it. Oh, it's not a lie. No, it's a lie. If you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, that is a lie. You said one thing and then you didn't do that thing that you said. So that's a lie. It's very cut and dry. It's very simple. So I never made plans with that person again. I saw him out socially, and I mean, I was fine. I didn't hate him. I just was saying that I'm not going to be treated that way. It's not going to happen. Are we clear on that? Yes. Okay, you know, if you do this again, I'm not making plans with you again. You got that? Yes. Okay. And then he did it again. Like, okay, see ya. You know? But like, this is, you know, even over here in the DR, things are very different here. Like, they're, you know, which you got to be flexible more over here, because there is such a thing as DR time. So like, if somebody says they're going to be there at 4, if they show up at 5:30, that's like average. You know, so you got to take the culture into consideration, like when you're, especially if you're in a different area, so you can understand what to expect. But don't use that as an excuse in the freaking United States, because they don't function that way over there as a general rule. There might be little pockets, but even then you can change it, because I've, like, over here, I do understand it and I do play around with it to some degree. But if it's somebody that I'm hanging out regularly with, no, man, no, I still don't put up with it. Not even over here. So, and it took a little while, because people like, yeah, right. But after a while, people, like, even the locals around here, like, if they're supposed to be here at a certain time, as a general rule, they're here at a certain time. Because if they're not, it's just unacceptable. It's like, no, I've got other stuff to do. I'm not sitting around for 3 hours just to see if you may or may not show up. I'll just go and do my own thing, you know. And then the next day they're like, where were you? It's like, well, you're supposed to be here at noon. 1:30. I just figured you weren't showing up, so I left. But like, I'll call or text. I give it a little more leeway because of the culture over here. But like I said, even here, people learn to treat you in certain ways. You know, they learn to respect your word, and all you have to do is be impeccable with your word. You know, if you haven't read the 4 Agreements, go read the 4 Agreements. It's incredible. Be impeccable with your word is one of these things. This is what I'm talking about, basically. It's the same energy. We have to say what we mean and mean what we say. Do what we do. Like, like we can't say, you know, things are going to be one way and then don't follow through with it and then wonder why people treat us poorly. Just be impeccable with your word. You know, to me, that's everything. Like, now, you know, and I taught my, you know, I taught my son this. This is how I teach people how to treat me. Is, you know, I learned a lot of this stuff being a parent with long-term vision. I could see that with a kid, if you're not consistent, then you're going to be arguing with that kid all the freaking time. So I taught my son, you know, I've told this story many times. I taught my son that, like, if we're in a store and he says, hey, can I get a candy bar? I'll stop and think. I won't just answer no all the time. Sometimes it'll be yes. But if I say no, it's a no, period. And once I say no, it's not about the candy bar anymore. It's being impeccable with my word. I will not change. No matter what is said, no matter what's explained, no matter how much he begs, it's not happening, because it's about me being impeccable with my word. It's not about the candy bar anymore. And once I did that, he was just, like, he got it pretty quickly. And if I said no, he'd be like, oh, okay, maybe next time. You know, and his friends would be like, please, can we please? And he'd look at them and he'd go, don't even bother. They're like, what do you mean? It's like, once he says no, it's a no. Doesn't matter what you say, he's not going to change his mind. And if you keep bugging him, then it's going to get worse. Like that, then he's going to get irritated that you're bugging him, and then we might get home and we might be punished. Like, well, not punished, but there might be consequences for not leaving him alone and being a pain in his ass. So I suggest you just stop now. That way, you know, we can just go on with our lives. It's a candy bar. It's not that big of a deal. You know? Like, he used to say this to his friends at 8 years old. You know, it was hilarious. But when I say something, I stand by it. With my words, with my actions, I stand by it. And because of that, people respect me. You know, when I was climbing Pico Duarte here, you know, earlier this year, the highest peak in the Caribbean. You know, it was, I'm not going to get into the whole story, but the next like we slept near the peak. And the next morning when we were going to go to another campsite, spend another night, and then go down. And Faith was beat up with her paws, and I was exhausted. We didn't barely got any sleep, and blah blah blah. So I said, you know, I told my friend, I said, listen, we're just going to head back down, like today. We're not going to go to the other place. It's 2 more days of hiking with the dog all beat up like this is not good. I've had just about enough. Like, I'm depleted. I'm wiped out. It's just time to go home and sleep in a normal bed, at least down the mountain, stay at an Airbnb, or we can go home. But like, we're just getting down is going to be a big enough chore with my energy level and the dog all beat up. So that's going to be enough. We're not going to do 2 more days, you know? And once I explained it to him, he was like, oh, okay. So, so later, halfway down the mountain, we're sitting there having some water, and he says, you know what the guides were talking to me about, before we left? And I said, no, because it was all in Spanish. I didn't understand it, you know? He says, well, I told them we're going to go straight down today. And they're like, no, let's go back over like the plan. It's really good. And, you know, he'd really like it, and blah, blah, blah. Like, just go tell him. And he was like, no, I'm not going to go talk to him about that. And they're like, why not? And he goes, you don't know this guy. Like, once he makes up his mind that this is what he's going to do, and he has reasoning behind it, and he thinks it's the right thing, he's going to do that. So if I go over there and try to talk him into doing something that he doesn't want to do, it's going to be a big waste of my time and waste of my breath. And I'm not going through that. So we're just going to go down. And then the guides went, really? And he was like, yeah, that's how he is. And they went, oh, okay. So we just went down the mountain. You know, but it makes my life so much easier because I'm impeccable with my word. If I say I'm doing something, that's what's going to happen. And I don't give a damn if people don't like it. It's my life. You know, I was paying these guys. It wasn't their trip. I was paying them to be my guide. So if I'm done and I'm going down, they still make the same amount of money. I didn't change the deal on them. I mean, that wouldn't have been fair, right? So I'm not talking about making, you know, other people's lives wrong because of whatever I feel like doing. But if it's a situation that I'm in charge of, and, you know, it's my decision, once I say that I'm doing something, I'll say it. And again, now my mind's not closed. Like, if they said, you know, hey, but if we go over there, there's zip lines down, and we can just zip line down, and there's no more hiking, I'd be like, oh, well, I didn't know that. Oh, okay, that sounds like fun. Let's do that. You know, that's fine. I mean, if there's other information that I didn't know about, then I'm open to it, and I can always change my mind. I have the right to do that. You know, so you can stay open. But it's just, you have to stand by what you say. And if you say, I'm not going to allow you to treat me like this, no matter if it's arguing or somebody yelling at you or somebody calling you names or whatever type of way they're treating you poorly, if you say, I'm not going to allow you to do this, then you have to follow through with that, with your actions. And don't allow it to continue. Don't allow them to finish so they can get what they want. It's that simple. You don't have to, and it's about you. You know, this is the whole energy. This is why it works so well, because I explained how it's feeding the positive and starving the negative. But to go even deeper, it's self-love. It's not about the other people. Like, I didn't say I was going to go down the mountain that day to spite somebody else. It wasn't about them. It was about me. I didn't tell my son he wasn't getting a candy bar because out of frustration with him. It was just that was the right decision for me at the time. If somebody's yelling at me or arguing with me, I don't want to be treated that way. I don't want to be treated that way. It's about me. It's not about them. I'm not judging them for yelling at me. I'm not judging them for arguing. They can argue and judge and yell at anybody they want. Anybody on the planet. I would like to think that they wouldn't. I don't want them to go do that, but I am not them. I am not in control of their actions. So it's none of my concern. I'm not the world police anymore. You know, my mom used to call me that when I was in school. What are you, the world police? Because if there was an injustice anywhere, I stuck my nose right in it. You know, now I learned that I am not in control of other people and what they do in their world. I don't give a damn what people do. For the most part, I cannot like it. And if sometimes, of course, there's times where we can stand up and voice our opinion and stuff like that. But I mean, as a general rule on a daily basis, I'm not concerned what other people do. It's none of my business. I'm my business. I'm just concerned with my life and how I'm treated and how I live my life. That's it. It's that simple. And that's self-love. See, if I make it about them, you shouldn't be yelling at me. You can't yell at people. You're a jerk. Then that's out of frustration energy, and it feeds it, and it's about them. We have to stop doing that. We have to act out of self-love. It's just about me, because it's harder for people to argue with that, and it's completely different energy. You can't yell at people. Don't tell me what to do. I can do what I'm your boss. And then it becomes a back and forth because two people are, frustration is anger energy. It's so, I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. I'm frustrated. You're frustrated. And you just throw frustration back and forth and you get a bigger ball of frustration because that's the only flavor of energy you got in there. But if somebody's throwing frustration energy at you and you just stand there in self-love, it doesn't feed the frustration. Now, they might get more frustrated from the frustration that's inside of them, and you might have to walk away, but you don't get sucked into it. You don't get engaged. And quite honestly, if you pay attention to the wording that you use when it's out of self-love, it's harder for them to argue. So if I say, if they're yelling at me and I go, you can't yell at people, you're just a jerk. And they're like, I'm not a jerk. Don't tell me I'm a jerk. I can yell at whoever I want. I'm the boss. Like it kind of, it still doesn't make much sense if you slow down and listen to what I just said. But conversations will sound like that when it's just frustration. But if they're sitting there yelling and you go, wait a minute, I don't function well with people yelling at me. I just can't communicate this way. It's me. I don't function well with people yelling at me. I don't communicate like this. I can't hear the words. All I feel is the yelling and I can't even hear what you're saying. I've said stuff like that to people. I'm like, all I hear is, I just don't, I can't, blame it on me. I take full responsibility. It's just me. I can't get yelled at. It's I have this problem. I can't get yelled at. That's all. It's just who I am. Sorry. I just doesn't work. Because it's harder. What are they going to say? Yes, you have to be yelled at. You have to like getting yelled at. You have to be able to understand words when somebody's yelling at you. Like what? That makes even less sense. You see, it's a harder sell, even for somebody that's upset. When you just stand in self-love and just make it about you, it's just about me, man. I can't get talked to like that. It just doesn't work for me. It has to work for you. It just sounds weird. You know what I mean? It's even if somebody's upset, it's hard for them to have a comeback that even makes a quarter, 25% sense. It's like, so this is why it doesn't feed it. It's just about me. You can't tell me I have to like people yelling at me. or I have to put up with people yelling at me. It's just I think HR would disagree, you know. I don't think that's really how it works. So it's all about self-love. Let go of the judgment. Don't worry about if they do it to everybody else and any of that. It's just about you and teaching people how to treat you. Just see if there's anything else. Yeah, just some other little tips in alignment with this is when people show you who they are, believe them. Like, if somebody treats you poorly and you keep giving them chances or you keep going to them, like, stop it. Just stop it. Like, if people show you who they are, believe them. They're literally showing you who they are. And you're going, oh, maybe they're having a bad day, or, and maybe they were, so maybe after a couple times but it doesn't mean you have to allow it. But put that in your brain like that. See, like sometimes we have to teach people. Sometimes we just don't have to include people in our lives. And this is kind of I'm kind of getting away from the teach people how to treat you and kind of coming at the topic a little bit differently, because there are other aspects to it. If you're tired of people treating you poorly, which is what the topic is, if somebody treats you poorly, then don't hang out with that person. I mean, if you have a choice, stop it. Just correct their behavior a couple times and stop calling them if they, like, there's other ways to do it. And this is one of the most common ones is people get so upset when they're hurting and then they drop right into victim mode. When somebody's already hurting and then they go to others for help and then they don't help them, they get very upset and drop into victim mode. And then they stop pointing the finger at these people. Like everybody else on earth is Satan and they're an angel. So they have to demonize people and be like, oh my God. But what people do is they go for help to people, like most often, like I can't count how many times I've had this conversation. So usually somebody says, yeah, they'll give me the brief overview in the beginning. Yeah, I went to this person for help. I'd be like, okay, wait a minute. And they want to go into specifics. And I go, and they didn't help you? They're like, right. And you're upset. Yes. Okay. That's all I need to know. Let me ask you a couple. And they're like, well, you don't even know the specifics. Specifics don't matter. I understand the dynamic. You went to somebody for help and they didn't help you. Right? That's the dynamic. So if I understand that dynamic, the rest of the specifics don't matter. So it's like, okay, so they didn't help you. Now, this person have, whether it's a family member or a friend, I usually ask, like, have they been emotionally supportive to other people? Like if it's a friend, have they been emotionally supportive to your other friends when they were going through something difficult? Or if it's a family member, were they emotionally supportive to other family members? And or have they been emotionally supportive to you in the past? And 99% of the time, the answer is no. No. You know what? Now that you mention it, whenever anybody's going through a difficult time, this friend like disappears. They're just nowhere to be found. Like, right. It's because they're incapable of being emotionally supportive towards somebody. I don't know why. It doesn't really matter why, but they're incapable of being supportive emotionally to other people. So, and you've known this person for 20, 30 years and you didn't pick up on that? No, I never thought about it. We have to think about this. We have to stop going to people for emotional support that are incapable of giving emotional support. How long we've known them is not a good judge. If they have the same blood running through their veins because they're family, not a good reason. We think, well, if we're good friends or their family, they should support me. No, it's not the rule. Like some people are capable of giving emotional support and some people are not capable of giving emotional support. They're just not capable. And like I said, it's not really so important as to why. Are you going to dive in and start being a psychologist or the psychiatrist or the life coach and dive into their childhood, figure out why, and then fix it? No, you got your own crap going on. So it doesn't really matter why. It just matters that you understand them for who they are. And you can be wonderful friends. Maybe they're a good friend to get all tore up with when you break up with somebody and then go hang out at a bar and go dancing all night. They're a great friend for that. Okay, good. Go do that with them. But if you need emotional support and somebody to be there, kind, caring, gentle with your heart when you're sensitive and you're vulnerable, don't go to them. Don't expect them to be there for you because they're incapable of it. It's nothing personal. They're not trying to hurt you. They're just incapable of it. And if you don't want to be friends with somebody like that, it's okay. Don't be friends with somebody like that. But don't become the victim. Don't become their victim. You know, this is what it is. It's all about empowerment, man. Take control over what you do. You know, like I was saying earlier, we blame people for acting unconsciously all the time. Oh, they should be there for me, or they you know, whatever. What we blame people for doing when they're in their unconscious mind, but then we do it. We go unconsciously. That's unconscious behavior. Going to somebody who is incapable of emotional support, even though you've known them for 20 or 30 years, if you were conscious, you would have picked up on this by now, but you're not. If you were conscious and making conscious decisions, who's capable of being there for me? Who isn't? Like, that's a conscious question. You would get an empowering answer to that question if that's what you asked yourself. But people don't ask themselves these questions. They just behave unconsciously. I'm hurting, need somebody. You help me. Oh, where'd you go? Why? Oh, I'm a victim. You know, like, and then you blame them for being unconscious. When you were unconscious, going to them in the first place. You see, this is how much the unconsciousness is embedded in our society and how we function. We need to slow down and pay attention to what we're doing and why we're doing it. So, yeah. I don't think I have anything else. Let me just kind of run a little check to see if there is anything. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, we have more control than we realize. You know, we can teach people how to treat us. And what we're doing when we're not acting consciously in this regard is what we're doing is we're teaching them how to treat us poorly. You know, it's the you know, raising kids. It's, you know, that's such a simple example. It's like if you have to understand, we got to think long term. What are your actions teaching somebody? If they get what they want, you're teaching them to do it more. Like I saw this when I was telling one day I was really upset with Mateo. I was just frustrated. You know, which happens when you have kids. He was young, and I had like told him over and over and over. And I was like, man, I told this kid 10 freaking times to do this. And I heard myself and I went, you told somebody to do something 10 times? Why would you possibly do that, Glenn? You know, whenever I had good parenting moments, it was when I pointed the finger back at me instead of pointing the finger at my kid. Because I'm the adult. I am the conscious one. I'm supposed to be in control of what's happening. If things are happening in my house that I don't like, that's my fault. because I'm in control. If the kid's running the roost, there's a problem, you know? So when I heard myself say, I told him 10 times and he still didn't do it, I'm like, why would you tell somebody the same thing 10 times? That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Why would you do that? And I pointed the finger at me. So then it slowed me down and I went, oh, okay. Yeah, I just keep I get busy and, and wasn't conscious. And I just started telling this kid over and over and getting more and more frustrated. So I was like, okay, well, you should do something different, Glenn. Set up consequences. Listen, I've told you a bunch of times. I'm not telling you 10 more times. So now I'm implementing consequences because there's natural consequences in life for your actions. So I'm going to tell you to whatever it was, clean your room. Okay, I'm going to tell you to clean your room. I'm not going to be on your butt all day. If I go to bed tonight and I look in your room and it's not clean, well, then the consequence is hitting. And this is what the consequence is going to be. Then if the room's not clean tomorrow, I'm not even going to tell you again. I've told you enough. So it's not that you don't know you're supposed to clean your room. You know, so I can stop telling you. So at the tomorrow night, if it's still not cleaned, this is what's going to happen. This is the consequence. And then strike 3, the third day, if it's still not clean, this is what's going to happen. And like I would set a succession up like that. And there's a reason. This is teaching people that you are impeccable with your word, teaching people the dynamic of your relationship, teaching people that you will follow through with the consequences that you say that you're going to implement. If you do not follow through with your consequences, this is the biggest mistake. People go, oh, you're not, people aren't, I tried setting boundaries and they're not listening. I'm like, then you're not setting boundaries. People can't choose to listen to a boundary or not because there's consequences and then you follow through. That's the whole point of a boundary. If you otherwise it's a suggestion. Hey, I'd like you to clean your room. If you don't, nothing's going to happen to you. So you can so basically what you're doing is you're teaching them to ignore you because they don't want to clean their room. So if there are no consequences, you are literally teaching them to ignore what comes out of your mouth. Because this is the dynamic, right? You go, wah, 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 like Charlie Brown's teacher. They don't listen to you. Nothing happens. Then you get upset and you say it again. They don't do anything. Nothing happens. They do it again. Nothing happens. So you're training them to not listen to you. And then parents wonder why their kids don't listen to them or their friends or their family. People don't listen to you because you taught them not to listen to you. Literally. This is actually a really good way to close this topic because this is another very common problem. This is how people get treated poorly on a consistent basis with all kinds of people all the time. And they don't understand why. They think they have no control. You're literally teaching them to ignore you. You are saying to them, whatever you do, don't listen to what I'm saying. And if you don't listen to what I'm saying, you will get what you want. You can just go on with life the way you like. And this is the same with addicts. It's the same with kids. It's the same with anybody, friends, family. If you do not teach them how to treat you, they're just going to, and it's unconscious. It's not, they don't think of it. They're not sitting there going, oh, I should ignore them because they never follow through with their consequences. I mean, some people, especially kids are pretty smart. Sometimes they might draw the line. And addicts might manipulate on purpose too. But most people, they're not trying to be manipulative. They just, they're unconscious, just like everybody else is. We all are. So we just walk around unconsciously and we just do what works. Like I've even caught myself doing that a couple times. There have been people in my life that are very, weak in that way. They just don't follow through with anything. They just say stuff, and like, you can tell there's no real meaning behind it. Like, they might want it, I guess, on some level, but they just say stuff, and they don't stand by it or anything. And unconsciously, all of a sudden, there's been a few times where I've caught myself, like, they said something and I just ignored them. And I'm like, oh my God, I just completely ignored that person. Like, why would I do that? I didn't do it consciously. I didn't mean to do it. It's just like the way they're talking, there's just no substance to it. They weren't going to follow through. They didn't, and I just kind of ignore, and I'd be like, oh my God. So I'll correct my behavior in that particular situation, maybe even have a talk with them. But it's unconscious. So stop, don't bother judging people and pointing the finger at them. They're bad. They shouldn't do that to people. That's not the rule. We can't wait for everybody else on the planet to become conscious and aware of what they're doing. Even though we've been unconscious for about 100,000 years, we're going to wait for everybody just to wake up and realize the error of their ways and then start suddenly treating everybody perfectly. And if that happens, then we'll be happy, because people will treat me in the way that I should be treated. Like, really, most people walk through life like unconsciously. That's their rule for happiness. They walk around waiting. Well, people don't treat me the way that I want to be treated. I wish people would treat me better. I wish people would be there for me when I need them. I wish people would respect me when I say something. Then teach them. Don't wait for them to have some sort of epiphany and of something that they're probably not even aware that they're doing or not doing. You take control. Teach people how to treat you by following through. Please. So yeah, that will do it. All right, peeps. It's all about empowerment, man. You don't have to allow people to treat you poorly. We can set boundaries, but we have to set them and follow through with the consequences consistently. Don't do anything other than that, please. And then come back and talk to me and say it didn't work. It's amazing how many people I've talked to about setting boundaries, and then they come back a month later or 6 months later or 4 years later and they go, I tried setting boundaries. No, you didn't. There's no such thing as trying to set boundaries. You either set them or you don't. And if you do, they work every single time. Why? Because there's consequences if they don't. And that person is either out of your life, in one aspect, or they are following your rules. Those are the only two choices if you set boundaries appropriately. So, and you can go back and, I know I've done 1 or 2 or more podcasts on boundaries. If you need to learn more about that, go listen to those podcasts. So if people are not responding to your boundaries, you're not setting boundaries appropriately. You need to be clear on what the boundary is and what the consequences are, and then follow through consistently every single time. Oh, but I'm so tired. I'm so busy in life. I don't have the energy to do that. That's the other thing I hear. Okay. So it's not taking much energy for people to walk on you and not listen to you and all this stuff. Like that doesn't take a lot of energy out of you. Yes, that's why I'm so tired. Okay, well, if you do it my way, then you're going to have to conjure up a little bit of energy to stand your ground. But then the rest of your life is going to be easier. So like, you do this for 3 months and then the rest of your life gets easier. Or you can continue doing what you're doing that got you tired in the first place for another 15 or 40 years. What's your choice? Dig deep, conjure up a little extra energy. I don't have it. That kills me. It kills me. I was a single parent with a kid on 3 soccer teams, starting my own business while collecting food stamps, running all kinds of events, and I found a way to do it. Like you can, it's amazing how much energy you can have when you stop making excuses and stop being a victim, and you stand up and you take charge of your life, because that's what it takes. You got to stand up and take charge of your life. I can give you the tools with the empowerment and the speeches and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, you got to go do it. You got to follow through with this stuff. And does it take energy? Yeah, it takes a little bit of energy, but it takes 3 months worth of energy is a lot less than 40 years worth of energy of being treated poorly. Like, I mean, and that's literally what we're talking about. You know, in some situations, we're talking about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years of being treated poorly. That's what we have to look out on in the future. Or we take a few months and really put some extra energy. And then those next 5 or 40 years become that much easier because people start respecting you. You know, and you have much better relationships. Like, I have really good relationships with people because they respect me. Why? Because I'm impeccable with my word. Like, they know what they're getting with me. There's no they don't have to figure me out. You know, it's right there. If I say it, it's going to happen. Oh, that's relaxing. It's nice. Yeah, it is. It's nice. All right, peeps. That'll do. Thank you. Peace. Enjoy. Take control over your life. You deserve to have a good one. We're only here for a while. So, like, you know, kick some ass and take some names, man. In a loving way. All right. Take care. Peace.
Looking for more? Check out over 200 episodes of Life Lessons and Laughter, or click the link in the description of this episode to connect with Glenn directly.